All right, we'll go ahead and get started today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Welcome to today's webinar on the 5 B2B event formats guaranteed to make an impact. My name is Corinne Stratton. I'm the head of marketing here at Banzai. Just a little bit about me and a little background on Banzai. Like I said, head of marketing here. I've been here about 7 months or so. It's been really wonderful to be a part of this team. Banzai is based in Seattle. We are really all about giving you the tools and the resources you need to produce great events, especially when it comes to making sure the right people are in the room. We like to say we want to get you the right butts and seats. So definitely do a little bit of a shameless plug at the end of today's webinar. I can tell you a little bit more, but really the main focus of today is to talk about great event formats, talk about what we've seen work well for some of our customers and what we've seen well work in our past. All of us here at Banzai have experience in events, and we've learned a lot of great things over the years. So we definitely want to give you some tips and some tools going forward, and maybe spark a few new ideas. You know, a lot of this stuff you've probably maybe heard of before, but maybe you haven't really thought of, like, maybe that will actually work for me. So hopefully we inspire you a little bit today. Before we get started, I would love to launch a poll and kind of learn a little bit more about what type of events you're producing. So if you don't mind taking a minute or 5 seconds, 30 seconds, let me know. Are you producing user conferences the most, roadshows, executive forums, lunch and learns, virtual events? And then if you're producing anything else, I would love to know about that too. So if you could put that in the chat, that would be great. All right, it looks like we have some coming through. Great. So it looks like we definitely have a lot producing user conferences. Oh man, I would love to learn a little bit more about that, because that is not an easy undertaking at all. So it looks like we have 40% of you producing user conferences, 20% producing road shows or an executive forum, like an executive roundtable discussion, another 20% doing virtual events. You know, we love webinars, as you can tell from today, all about the webinar, lunch and learns, and then we also have some others. So this is really wonderful. Thank you guys. This is just really interesting to see what is out there, what you guys are focusing your time on and your resources on. And this will kind of help color our conversation today a little bit. So let's see, we'll go ahead and close this poll. Apologize. Okay, great. So the first thing I really want to touch on is what makes a great event. Let me make sure you guys can see my screen. Okay, great. So what makes a great event? And I really believe it's about 3 things. It's about creating that unique experience. You know, are you breaking through the noise? Your attendees, your prospects are getting emails and requests every single day, multiple times a day, to get some of their time and their attention. So what are you doing to give them something unique, a reason to attend? And then, of course, you'll hear this theme a lot in today's presentation. It's about making sure it's worth their time. Again, you're asking a lot of them to be there, so you really need to make sure it's worth it. There's a good chance they're setting aside personal time to go here, or they're setting aside work time, which is, you know, really important too. So give them a reason. And then, of course, actionable insights. I think this is huge. When they attend, what are they going to leave with? What type of tips and tricks are you actually giving them? Some resources, anything that they can take back to the office the next day and start making some change, right? So does your event do that? And I think the way to really make sure you hit all 3 of these points is if you truly understand who your target audience is. You know, an event for an executive, an event for a CXO is going to look very different than an event for an end user. They both will have a different experience. Their timing is a little bit different, and those actionable insights will also be different. So with that in mind, we're going to chat today about the different event types that we've seen work really well, like I said, and kind of what makes most sense for your audience. So the first one I want to talk about, which most of you seem to be pretty familiar with, is the user conference. User conferences, wow, I'm really impressed that a lot of you are doing these, because they're big deals. They take a lot of time and a lot of resources. I found this quote from Kramer, who is a great event agency. They support a lot of B2B events. And they wrote that user conferences help connect people with the brands they love and re-energize their commitment to the work they do. And I think that's a great kind of quick recap of why user conferences are so important and so influential. But here's the question. Should you host a user conference? Why should you host a user conference? And spoiler, really, they're not just for users or just not just for your customers. They're really for your customers, your prospects, people that you want to get in front of your brand. So we think they're really great because they're a great way to introduce prospects to your product. And at user conferences, you have the opportunity to provide updates on your products, which is really great. Do a new demo, of course, upsell to your current customers. We love that. And then you can connect your customers with your prospects. And I think, my humble opinion, that's the biggest deal, right? Your prospects are able to hear firsthand from your customers of why they love your product, why it works so well for them. They're getting that direct testimonial from your most loyal, engaged customers. And you can't ask for a better marketing material than that, if I do say so myself. But is the user conference the right answer for you? Because again, these are pretty big. It's a big deal to put one on. And so we go back to those 3 points again. It's really now looking at you. Okay, well, do you have the time and the resource to plan this event? It's a lot. It's a big scale. Can you do it? Can you make sure this event is worth your attendees' time? You're asking them to spend a day out, or maybe more out of the office. Some of your attendees might need to travel. Some of your attendees actually have to get written approval from their managers and from their teams. So you need to make sure the value is clear from the absolute beginning. And finally, user conferences, they cost money. They're expensive to produce. Is that investment worth it? What is the ROI? What's your prospective value of the people in the room? Does it make sense for your business? Maybe it does, awesome, but maybe not. And that's why there's a lot of other really great event options out there for you. Did want to provide a quick example agenda of, a day user conference. You can see the different sessions here. There's a lot of breakout tracks, networking opportunities. This is a full day with a lot of great content and really the opportunity to provide solutions to your attendees. I think that user conferences are really impactful because they give your attendees the chance to hear, like I said, directly from your customers and see how your product actually kind of works in the wild. Also, with the right content and partners, user conferences can set your company up to be seen as an industry expert that really cares about the advancement of the industry as a whole, not just your product. So for those of you who are doing a lot of user conferences, I would love to hear from you, maybe at the end of today, or maybe we can talk after this about why it really works for you and the value that you get out of them, because I think they are an incredible tool if you're able to produce them. So the next format I want to cover is the roadshow. I love roadshows because what's great is that they're small and they're scalable. This was a quote I found from David Spinks. He's the CEO of CMX. And when he talks about like this type of event, he says that it creates a more personal and engaging environment, which I think is the greatest aspect of small events. Each person is featured and expected to get involved. And again, that's what's so great about this, right? You're having maybe 30 people in the room, I would say at most 50, and you're getting a chance to talk to them all one-on-one, engage with them, and also have them engage with each other and with your brand. So like we said, they're scalable. You can reproduce them across your sales regions. That's a great reason to have them and to find a format that works for you and that's really easy for you to replicate. Easy might not be the right word, but it's doable for you to replicate. So we've seen a lot of cool ideas in the last couple of years working with our customers on what makes kind of a good and successful roadshow. So I wanted to put these out there, maybe get you thinking. Would love to hear if you have any unique ideas as well. Some that we've seen the whiskey tasting in a fireside chat, which was very unique. Movie screening followed by dinner and discussion, happy hour and networking, you can't go wrong. You definitely can't go wrong with the suite at a professional game. That's always great. We've seen cooking classes, places where you can like make your own dinner and take it after you're networking while you're making the dinner and then you take it away with you. Really, really interesting things like that. Here's an example agenda. This is the roadshow for maybe a baseball game. So I think the really important thing to remember here is that there still needs to be a chance for content, right? There still needs to be a chance that you are providing your attendees with more than just a baseball game. You're talking about your product, you're talking about the industry, you're giving them the opportunity to network. So this one, a game would probably start, let's say 5:30 would be the first pitch. So, 4 o'clock you open, people can get there, get their tickets, register, start networking, get some snacks, get some beer. 5 o'clock maybe, 4:45, you do kickoff comments and maybe a brief demo. You let people know why they're there, why you're excited to have them there, what you want to talk about today. And then during the game, this is the time for you to really, this is when you get your sales reps, the members of your team. This is when they're working hard and they're networking. They're talking to the attendees in the suite, learning about their pain points, creating those personal connections. And then if you can, before everyone kind of goes their separate ways, you end it with some closing comments and again, hopefully some action for them. So the next event I wanted to talk about is the Executive Forum. And this is a lot like the Roadshow in the sense that it's a series that you can reproduce where you need to. The idea here is that you feature maybe a subject matter expert. Maybe this is an executive from your team, a leader within the industry to moderate a discussion or really speak on a topic that advances the industry and also starts to create a community where executives can get together, can talk about their challenges because they are unique challenges at that level. And then they can really have a chance to collaborate. All right. So, like I said, we definitely want kind of those leaders in the room. So subject matter experts, what's so great about them is that they add authenticity and depth to your content. So having them there to talk about your brand without really selling your brand is really very valuable. So why should you host an executive forum? I think there's a lot of value here in really growing and supporting that executive community. It's a great way to get in front of your prospective company leaders and tell your brand story, like I said, without really forcing, talk about your product. And then you're also building that community. You might host this type of a forum when you have published new research or you do something to advance the category that you work in. A moderator for this type of discussion might be, like I said, your CEO, your CMO, or maybe it's someone from a firm that you partnered with to conduct your research, like an analyst. Or maybe it's an author, right? Someone out there that's known for their expertise in that field. All of these options are great for hosting that discussion and talking to this group of executives. One example that we've seen before, it was a company in the tech space. They decided to have a futurist speak on how AI is set to change the workplace in the next 3 to 5 years. That's the kind of discussion you're looking to have here. So like I said, with an event like this, your product may take a back seat, but you're again really making sure your brand is seen as evolving the industry and establishing that great community. So here's a brief agenda. Then this one's pretty simple. It's really all about that discussion and that Q&A. And something I think to think about this too is if you're looking at this type of audience, this executive audience, there's a good chance your event needs to be kind of off hours. So this is an example where it's a breakfast. It's a good chance you also might do a dinner or something like that. Something that's not necessarily gonna pull from their workday. Or when you have it at the beginning of the day, nothing's come up so far where they'd have to cancel, like they might with a lunch or something like that. Also something to think about is an event like this is a great way to actually give a physical takeaway. So this might be, let's say, a copy of the research you just produced. That could definitely be a takeaway here. If you have that author speaking, or if one of your executives recently came out with a book, having that there, having them sign it, something like that for your guests to really remember from this event. So our next format, this is format number 4, I believe, are the lunch and learns. Now, I think lunch and learns are really fun. The one thing at least when I initially started in this business and started thinking about lunch and learns, I thought them as really as an internal tool for your employees, events for your employees to learn more about your company, maybe something HR related, but it's definitely something to consider for your customers and your prospects as well. And what's great is it means it's really going to be a very product focused discussion. So this is a quote, I loved it. I hope you guys are doing well with all my quotes here. But this was from Corporate Catering Concierge. Whether your objective is to bring in new clients or further educate your colleagues, food is always something to look forward to. And I totally agree. So the Lunch and Learn, like I said, it is this opportunity to really be product focused, to be a little bit more informal. You're creating an environment where it's not only okay, but really expected that you're going to demo your product and talk about the new things that your company is doing. It's also the opportunity to establish a more personal relationship with the people in the room, and you're starting to create that local end user group, right? So maybe from this Lunch and Learn, okay, we had really great engagement. Now we're going to start a local user group. We're going to meet once a month. Maybe it's in this Lunch and Learn format. Maybe it's more of a user group in the evening happy hour, something like that. But this is a great opportunity to start building that community of local users. So just some things to think about. Lunch and Learns, like I said, it's a little bit more informal, and you can do some pretty cool things here in terms of where you're hosting this event. We've seen it work really well where actually offices, your company hosts this event in their own offices. There are a lot of great facilities out there, a lot of really cool headquarters. So use your space. Get a chance for your customers and your prospects to show up, get to know you a little bit better. It's a little bit more personal. I think they'll feel a little bit more connection to you and to your brand if they know where you're working every day. Especially like, let's say you have offices in San Francisco, LA, New York, Hong Kong. You can do these, you can replicate this a lot like the Roadshow in all of these different facilities. Another option is looking towards your customers. Again, if you want to replicate this, get this in different cities, look at your different sales regions, look at what customers are really loyal, who are really advocates for your product, and request to host at their office. I think that could be a great opportunity, again, to get to know them better and to get to know those users in those different regions. And then also, there are so many cool local co-working spaces now. They are great facilities for smaller meetings. They have the tech to support you. If you're doing presentations and demos, they usually have all of that as part of the kind of the rental fee. So definitely something, if you're looking for a space, worth looking into those co-working spaces because they have really, really great setups. And then of course, I think it's really important that you offer a live stream option for your attendees. Sometimes getting away for that 90 minutes can be tough. Getting away for lunch, things come up during the day. People might want to just kind of pop in and see what's going on with the Lunch and Learn. So make sure to offer them some sort of live stream. Here's an example agenda. This one's kind of obvious. It's really focused around that demo and that discussion. So you'll do a check-in, grab the lunch. Maybe it's a bag lunch, maybe it's pizza, sandwiches. Have that demo and discussion. Make sure to save time for Q&A. There's a good chance that people in the room, are you really engaged customers or are you really engaged prospects? So they want to be pretty hands-on with your product. They want to be asking really detailed questions, thorough questions. So make sure there's time for that. And then of course, wrapping it up, some closing comments. Probably recommend about 90 minutes. So the last format I want to talk about is virtual events. We love virtual events. As you can tell from today's webinar, we're all about hosting webinars. We think they are great scalable tools that every company should be utilizing. On24, kind of the expert in all things virtual events, they had this great quote talking about how virtual events are the first step to really capturing your audience attention and extending your brand's values. And that can be through webinars, virtual conferences, or learning centers. So why do we love virtual events? Like I said, super scalable. You can reach a wide range of audiences. There's also a variety of formats. So webinar, you don't just have to be married to that. It could also be virtual conferences. There are people that have done full day, multi-day virtual conferences. There's also a great opportunity for live streams here, for Q&As, maybe an AMA feature. And what's really great about them is that ideally they take a little bit less time for prep and they take a little bit less resources. And this is not just for you, this is also for your attendee. It's a lot easier to, sit at their desk, eat their lunch, put on their headphones, if possible. So again, pretty obvious example of a webinar. Pretty easy. They log on a little bit early, you launch the webinar. You, again, really want to give them something actionable, something new that they can take with them. They'll have some time for some Q&A, and then, of course, some wrap up. And so what we've seen is we've gotten actually some really positive feedback around webinars about keeping them this 30 minutes length. It was just easier for people to take that time to sit, to focus on the webinar, whereas maybe an hour and a half, things come up, they have to log off. So this is something to consider. If you've done this before, I would love to learn more about it, or learn what kind of success you've had. And then, yeah, and something what I think is so great about webinars, Banzai personally, this is our biggest form of lead generation, is when it comes to webinars. And they're usually some of our strongest leads with the highest conversion. So I'd love also to hear from you there if you see that same success. So finally, I just wanted to talk a little bit about, what event type makes sense for your target audience. So these are the 5 that we talked about today. User conference, a lot of it depends on the content, but you're probably going to be pretty hands-on here, talking about product, talking about, best practices, how others are using your product. So really here, it's your decision maker and your end user. And I feel the same about the Roadshow. People want to be asking some pretty granular questions. So this is a good opportunity for that decision maker and end user. For the executive forum, this is where we want to keep it pretty high level. Keep it to your CXOs, maybe some VPs and directors, but really you want, if you're doing a roundtable discussion of CMOs, you want it to be all CMOs in the room, or you want it to be all CFOs. For the lunch and learn, now this is, again, we're talking really specific product demoing. So definitely your main target audience here is your end user. Decision makers are great to have in the room too, because they probably have some questions, but the end user is really who you're going to be targeting. And then for virtual events, it all depends on the content. So if you have a webinar that is really focused towards executives, then that's who you're going to be going after, of course. And maybe you do keep it broad. Maybe you keep it open to any of these types of attendees. It's really up to you and what you hope to get out of that virtual event. Okay, so like I said, we have about 5 minutes left. So quick Banzai plug. Banzai, what we do is we automate event marketing outreach. Our goal is really to support professionals in fulfilling their potential by connecting them to new ideas and to each other through educational B2B events, whether they're virtual, regional events, conferences, anything like that. And we really do this by automating the early stage of your event marketing. So really focusing on that outreach. We support you by sourcing qualified leads based on your target audience. We then handle the invitation, registration, and confirmation process. This is kind of an interesting fact, but we actually used Banzai for today's webinar. We used our product to see, really how it works. And they got over 50% of our registrations today. So definitely recommend. So if you definitely want to learn more, let me know. Don't hesitate to reach out. We can book a demo. We can provide you more resources, anything like that. Just send me a note. And on that, here are some resources for you. We have our March webinar already on the books. We're going to be talking about getting the most out of your event marketing leads. What is that follow-up process like? How do you align with your sales team to make sure you're all on the same page? We also have the ability, if you'd like, to schedule a complimentary event strategy session. This is where we can talk about your upcoming events, what type of format makes sense for you, what type of target audience you should be going after. All of that, we're happy to help in any way we can. We also, if you're looking for something new to listen to on your commute, we have a podcast called the Banzai Pipeline. This is all about how we grow as marketing leaders, how we grow as sales leaders, that partnership, why it's important. We currently have 10 episodes. Would love for you to give it a listen. It's on the website. You can also find it on iTunes or SoundCloud, anything like that. And then finally, book a demo. Let us know if you want to learn more. We're happy to help. And then, of course, connect with me. I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter. Would love to hear from you. Send me an email, anything like that. All right. So with that, if you guys have any questions, now's a great time. Any comments, anything that you've seen work well for you. I've seen a couple come through. Yes, I will be sharing this presentation out. I'll send you the recording. We'll also have the slides available on the website. Are there any other questions that I can help answer? Okay. Well, thank you all so much for being here today. It was really wonderful to get a chance to talk. I saw some familiar faces, so I appreciate you guys all attending. Like I said, don't hesitate to reach out with any questions. Let me see, I just got a couple questions coming through. Okay, are there audience size considerations that differ across lunch and learns versus exec forum, for example? You know, I think it kind of depends on your space and the type of like exec forum you want to have. So if you're having a roundtable discussion, I would probably cap that at like 15 people at most. A lunch and learn, I think you could have close to 30. So it's really about the type of content you're presenting and the type of format you want to have, the type of discussion you want to have. I think for the lunch and learn, something to consider is how many members of staff that you'll have there as well, members from your team, so that if you do a demo and people are kind of hands-on in your product, that there's other people there to support and provide feedback, answer questions. So just make sure that you have the resources to support your audience size. Okay, I hope that helps. Thank you all. Look forward to seeing you. Hopefully we'll see you in March on March webinar. Talk to you soon.